Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin, your host here, and today Canadian Warren Nye. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to get in contact with me and look forward to having a good chat here.
Yeah, so kind of main topic, we're going to go into your background and what you do, but I kind of poached you a little bit and said, hey, we want to talk a little bit about Canadian juniors. We really haven't, we've recorded over 100 episodes and really haven't talked too much about Canadian juniors. And I think it's getting more and more of an interesting topic for lots of reasons. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's start
Yeah,
with let's start with your background, and let's start with first what you do and your current, because you're a sports psychologist and an agent. So I'm sure that kind of flows into
yeah,
each other a little bit.
yes, it does. Yeah, I work for with an agency called RRI Global Hockey Agency, actually, just in Ontario, Canada. And then as well, I am a peak performance mindset coach. I work with majority, when I say majority, 95% of my clients are hockey players. And so obviously ones I work with through as an agent, advisor, and as well as any of the players that are involved with our agency that need some assistance, I'm there for them type of deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does go hand in hand, of course, confidence, consistency in the game, and so forth. So we do a lot of talking with the players, and they do a lot of questions once they realize who I am and what I can maybe help them out with.
Yeah. And but go back a little bit too, because you played college hockey, and then
Sure.
if I'm looking at your LinkedIn
Mhm.
profile, you also
Yep.
worked as a general manager, which kind of lends into where we want to go. You've been there in the trenches, and so you kind of knows the ins and outs there of Canadian juniors.
Yeah. Well, hey, we don't know all the answers, but we try to find them out as best as possible. But yeah, my background, of course, is being Canadian. You're born with skates on in most cases, so we played hockey up through the junior ranks, up through college. Then, like a good old hockey player, you either finish it off with an injury or whatever, and that's what finished my career off was a knee injury. And so I went into coaching, and then coached through short stint in minor hockey, and then went in right into juniors, junior A, junior B, coached, scouted, and then became a GM in junior. And then after my stint there was done, I moved over onto the family advising agency business. And all that time I was going to school and or online school basically because I was too old to go back to school and have family and everything. That's my excuse. So I did everything online, became a sports psychologist and peak performance mindset coach. So yeah, the management part, yeah, I've been in the trenches. I always say to the players and families and the GMs and coaches, I've been on both sides of the fence. Been there, done that. Have a T-shirt I can sell you. But again, we don't have all the answers because things change as the years have gone on.
Yeah.
So, and they're still changing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when I think of, so we've done some previous episodes before on, the different levels, and we'll kind of repeat these a little bit for those and it may be, there's new people to listen to this and they're not familiar with Canadian juniors. And I always think it's a good idea, even if you go to Elite Prospects, and let's say we have a lot of listeners, of course, are coming from Europe, and they're interested in Canadian juniors, so
sure.
we got major juniors, which is WHL, OHL, and the Q, and
Correct.
then we have the next layer down, which is junior A. Um,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about Hockey Canada, and how does Hockey Canada, what's part of Hockey Canada and what's not part of Hockey Canada? Because it used to be pretty much everybody was part of Hockey Canada, right?
That's correct. Yeah, everybody was part of Hockey Canada. Not anymore. And that is decreasing as we speak, I feel. Mostly with junior hockey. A lot of after major junior A, which is what three leagues you mentioned, there is the next level of junior A, what I used to call tier two junior A. They
Yep.
still may call it that, but I call it tier two. So that's your USHL, excuse me, and all the other tier two leagues, right from BC, Alberta, Junior Hockey League, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, then into Ontario, which is there's three leagues in Ontario that are tier two junior A,
Yeah.
and then you go out to Eastern Canada, and they have a junior A in the Maritimes, and Quebec as well has their. They don't call it junior A per se, or they do, but they call it triple A for some reason, just to be different, I guess. But those are the next levels, and then you go into the junior B levels after that, which is across Canada as well.
Yeah.
The one thing that I guess is a big difference in Canada now is that there's a couple leagues, both out west and out east, that are non-sanctioned. They broke away from Hockey Canada, mainly the BCHL, a big junior A league out there. Um, it's an excellent league. It's high end players. Most of them will get commitments out of for D1s to D3 schools, NCAA. It's close to being major junior A, in my opinion, what the hockey's about. As an agency, we have several players out there playing. Some have dropped, moved from the OHL or the Q and are playing with some teams out that way. So that's the caliber of hockey it is. So it's something I would say there's going to be further development on junior leagues dropping away from Hockey Canada. Um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a lot, yeah, to drop away or step away, but it's something that's going to be happening. I think there's a couple of East Coast out in Eastern Canada as well. I guess it's the next move is minor hockey. That will probably there's some talk that some minor hockey associations and so forth across Canada are thinking or have already done breaking away from Hockey Canada. It's a process that's probably going to happen over the next couple of years. I think more so in junior hockey than minor hockey, but
Yeah.
that's just my opinion.
So let's
Yeah,
talk about kind of how is it structured? Of course, on the US, I live in North Carolina. On the USA hockey side, you have similar things. You have sanctioned and unsanctioned programs, but
yep,
really under in the what Canadians call minor hockey here in the US is called youth hockey. And all pretty much there's
right.
everybody's part
Yeah,
of USA hockey on the youth side. But then you have some
yeah,
junior programs they're not. But if you broke down USA hockey, it's divided into affiliates. So you
yeah,
have Massachusetts has his own, and Michigan has his own, and Minnesota has one. Here in North Carolina, it's the Carolina Amateur Hockey Association, CAHA. But how is it
yep.
in Canada? How is it broken down? Because I think I saw somewhere that I'm assuming that each province have their own subset under Hockey Canada.
Correct. Yeah,
But in Ontario, of
that's
course,
correct.
Ontario
I
have to
mean,
be a
just
little bit
use.
different.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so. We're the Western and Eastern folks won't like it, but being Ontario, we're the central area and the biggest to a certain extent, population maybe wise. But yeah, Ontario has the Ontario Hockey Federation, which is a comes down from Hockey Canada, and then under Ontario uh, Federation, Ontario Hockey Federation is your minor hockey in Ontario. There's the Alliance Division, the Ontario Minor Hockey Division, your Northern Ontario Hockey Minor Hockey, and then those are under OHF. And but then there's Hockey Eastern Ontario, which isn't under OHF, it's strict right under Hockey Canada for some strange reason. Maybe it's because Ottawa's in there. I don't know. That's tongue in cheek
Yeah, yeah.
um, on the political side, but yeah, they're the only ones that aren't under Ontario Hockey Federation, the OHF. We're still kind of scratching our heads wondering why that's happening, but anyway, that's besides the point.
But I
So
think it's
that's how minor hockey structure.
but I think it's an important one because especially when that deals with juniors, tell me if I'm right or wrong here
Yep,
about that because that is they may have a little bit different rules than the other.
they do. They do, and we're going through that situation with minor hockey. A couple players trying to come into central Toronto area to play, and it's in most cases is easy transfer, but if you're coming from HEO, Eastern Ontario, it's not so much an easy transfer, and they're being held up right now as their leagues start,
Yeah,
so they're not playing these kids, which is unfortunate.
yeah,
So they have a little bit more pull, if you want to say, which is I don't know why game, but that's the way it is. And yeah, there's different rules, and then you gotta. To me, there's too many, too much red tape. You got to have a rule, and then you got to make a rule. You got to form a committee to make a rule, and then you got to form another committee to make a committee. It seems like, and it's a sad thing when adults get involved in the game that it's for the kids, and then the kids are ignored.
yeah. But
That's
I
the
guess
sad part. So,
I guess the other side of that is so that is the origin of why necessarily you start seeing some splits and some disagreements and let's people call them defectors or entrepreneurs depending on which seat they're in, right?
yeah,
Um,
right.
but
Yeah,
but all
and
right,
that's
we got I'm sorry we have a little bit of a delay here too, but
yeah,
let's go into the major junior because I think it's important also to understand how the path coming up because you see a lot of these young players that are a little bit unique. So let's talk about your province there. You're in London, Ontario. And so the major
yep,
junior for if you live in Ontario, and
yep,
maybe we can follow kind of the path for a youth or minor hockey player. So they grow up playing Adams to Squirts, or is it Squirts in minor hockey up there?
uh, yeah. I guess yeah, squirts, and then it goes into the atoms, and so we've changed it now to almost like you guys, to you U19 or not U19, U9, U10s, U11s and 12s and so forth. So where it used to be just the atoms and minor PV and so forth.
Yeah,
So they've changed that. I mean, the general rule through Ontario is there's the highest level minor hockey is what we call the AAA level,
yeah,
and playing AAA, you're the elite level, I guess, and then it falls down to depending on the association and town and cities. They have double A, single A, double B, and so forth down the loop. And in smaller communities like up north, they only have what they call a AE or whatever, which and then it goes down to house league. So there is different levels. But the main look at thing is the AAA level, where you play AAA level up through minor hockey, and then you get into the U16 level, which here is the draft year, as they call it, for to be drafted into the Ontario Hockey League,
but
and that's the big
let
thing.
let me stop you
Uh,
there, Warren,
yep,
because one
yep,
confusing thing between USA Hockey and Hockey Canada is that a U16 in Canada is a
yep,
U15 in the US, right?
correct. Yeah, yeah, just to confuse people. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all it is. You would think, it could be different.
Yeah.
One of them had to be different, and then that's just the way it is. So
Yeah.
I don't.
But if
I've ignored that for years now.
yeah. But now, okay, so if you're a 15-year-old, that's the draft year. And when we're saying draft year, of course, in Ontario, that's going to be for the OHL draft, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and you got to remember that when we say U16 up here, when they start the season, majority of the kids are 15 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they get drafted, majority like when the draft happens in April, they're 16.
Yeah.
Majority of them.
Yeah.
So that's why. It's realistically, like the states, it should really be called a U15 year, but again, to be different. Yes, and that's exactly what that year is about is the draft, as we all go by it. Which obviously if you go out west to the Western Hockey League, their draft is the Bantam age, which is U15. Um, so again, why can't we all be the same? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a Hockey Canada thing, and to be different, I guess.
But but
Um,
but if we
but
use if we
and
use a
there's probably a
player,
reason why. Yep,
if we use a player here, like for example, and I've got a little bit of a poor connection I see here.
yep,
If we use a player like Mitch Marner as an example, who famously grew up playing in the Toronto area in the GTHL, right? And at some
correct,
point he got drafted in the OHL.
correct.
And
He got
talk
drafted by London Knights in OHL. Yep,
Yeah. So, of course, then he makes a decision that, okay, if you talk about this thing about when you go in the major juniors, that's considered a professional league. And therefore, at this point today, which is end of September, you're not eligible to play in the NCAA, right?
that has been the rule.
Not at all timely to
You're
talk
leading
about
into
that today.
something. Yeah, no, that has been the rule. Is that you sign with an OHL team. The agreement uh, is a what they call now um, a a school agreement, scholarship fund agreement, which they put money towards the player on a yearly basis towards his um, college or university fund, which when they finish playing OHL hockey could be 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is. They have a scholarship fund that they can use to go to university
Yeah.
after they play, and they have 18 months after they finish their career in the OHL to start school.
But what happened
So
then?
that's the rule. Yep.
So if we
Yeah.
take a player that is of course, a Mitch Marner is going to then go early to go. I've got him pulled up here. So he went early
Correct.
in the OHL draft and played very early
Oh yeah.
for them.
Yep.
But
Yep.
not everybody got that. So what about
No. No.
but it is a fairly young league, right? Going from the AAA U16 and then going into OHL, those guys are
Yeah.
studs and will be playing
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the higher they are drafted, higher rounds, those are the ones that are going to be playing OHL junior A hockey for again 2 to 4 years, and then probably are going to be drafted again for NHL or
Yeah,
somewhere down the road. The ones that maybe are on the lower ends of mid rounds to the low end rounds of the draft, they still have the opportunity to make the team, but they have to make it.
yeah,
There's a rule of the top 3 rounds. Those players basically are going to be playing as 16-year-olds in the league. They get contracts or agreements, as they like to be called now. Um, and anything below third round, fourth round, that type of area, they may get an agreement later on in the season while they're playing somewhere else. Junior hockey, be it tier two junior A or junior B, or they come back into camp for next year and then sign at that time. Maybe they're just late bloomers type of thing. But
Yeah.
I've had players that were 10th, 12th round picks, didn't play as a 16-year-old, got better, matured, and made it the following year
Yeah.
and signed their agreement. So it's just a maturity, just development stage. That's all.
So let's talk about that because that brings up this next level, right? So and the same thing happens
Yep,
in the WHL and this happens on the Q to a certain degree. But let's stay in the OHL
for
because
sure.
that where you're at. But let's say now
Yep.
I'm a 16-year-old and I was a seventh round draft pick and I go to camp and I get cut from the OHL. Um, I'm probably not going
Yep.
to go back and play U16 at that time, right? I'm now going to go play junior A or junior B.
No. Yeah. Well, we have what we call U18 up here, which is it's a 2-year program. U18 is, for instance, this year, U18s, if I'm not mistaken, are 2007s and 2008 born players.
Yep.
So you just had the OH this past year's draft. If they don't make a junior team, whatever league, they can play U18, AAA. And as 07s, if they don't make junior hockey, be it A or B, they can go back for their second year of U18. So that's where that's a little different up here. But so if someone from the that's drafted as an 08 and doesn't make it major junior A, doesn't get a spot in junior A or junior B, because there is restrictions on how many 16-year-olds that teams can have, which is only two,
Yep.
and that may change next year up to four. So they're limited spots. So if you don't make there, then you're going back to play U18 AAA.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is agreement between the OHL and U18 teams. If a U18 team takes one of your, say, a London Knight draft pick, and they want them to play U18 um, junior B or junior A, that junior team will get a development fee from the major junior A team,
Okay.
which is about $1,500. Yeah.
So let's
So they
talk
are
then.
going to take two 16.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about the difference then between junior A and junior B because you see a lot of the
Sure.
teams that may have within the same ownership group, they have a junior A and a junior B team, right?
Yeah, there's a couple up here. Yep. Yep.
And
Difference
yeah,
to me, there's a little bit of difference, not a heck of a lot. Um, Heck, when I played 100 years ago, all it was junior B across Ontario, one league. And then they branched out. Junior A and the ownerships of some of the junior B teams thought they were better than others and formed the Ontario Junior Hockey League or Provincial Junior Hockey League, as it used to be called. But really, there is, it's like any other, this is how I explain it. It's like any other leagues from A or B and so forth. You're going to have your top end tier two junior A teams that will smack the heck out of anybody anywhere type of deal. Then you're going to have your other top half of junior B teams that will probably smack the lower half of the junior A teams. So it really comes down to, on the junior B side of things, is it's more Western Ontario. So you're looking at down in Niagara area, uh, up through the Stratford, what we call London, and so forth, which is the Midwest, and then you go out Western Ontario. So it covers that part. There is another junior B league out on Eastern Ontario. It's not as strong, but they're trying to get it developed more and more. So it to me out that way, the junior B league out in Eastern Ontario, it probably wouldn't those teams wouldn't be able to beat some of the top teams in junior B out here.
yeah.
So the townships and the towns, the small towns that have these teams. And I mean, they've had them for years,
Yep.
50 plus years. Some of these teams have been around longer. And then we have another level down below that is junior C, which is really geared for the older guys that are, okay, I'm starting school, or I'm working after grade 12, or I'm starting to work. They still want to play hockey, but they don't want to put the commitment in to be on the ice 4 or 5 times a week. They only want to be on the ice maybe 3 to 4 times a week because they got school, university, or college. That's junior C, and that's older guys from 18, 19, 20 year olds, 21 year olds. It's a much better league than it used to be, but it's huge in Ontario. It's the biggest league in North America.
And an
Junior
example
C.
of that would be the
That's
Gouge,
how
right?
many. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. The Gouge is the junior B.
Okay.
The Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League is Junior B, and that's basically Western Ontario. Junior C goes right across Ontario and up north,
Okay.
up Ontario.
So
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 it's huge.
so
Yeah.
let's
And
break down
yep,
let's break down the junior A, because and I want to make sure that people understand like
yep,
this when we talking about the CJHL, which is the Canadian Junior
yep.
Hockey League, which is just a name for the group of junior A leagues across the provinces, right?
Yeah, yeah, because a um they play for a cup, basically a championship, national championship is what it's called. Used to be the RBC Cup. Now it's I forget what it's
Centennial,
called
right?
now. So Daniel, that's it. Yeah, changed the past couple of years. And so you have out of Ontario, and I missed a league in Ontario, and I apologize. The SIJHL, Superior Junior Hockey League, plus the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the CCHL, which is Eastern Canada. Then you have the Ontario Junior Hockey League, which is Central Ontario. 4 leagues, and they all play to go for a chance to go to the national championship, and they all will be playing against the, Maritimes will have a team represented it, Quebec, and then you go out west from Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, and then BC doesn't have now a representative. They're working on forming a league or upgrading a league that they eventually will have someone to represent it. But that's why there's the junior A's. They form and they have their own championship, which is the Centennial Cup. Junior B does not have a national championship cup to play for. It's just province per province that they have.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between. So your levels of hockey player per se will be higher because of the national cup. You're getting a bigger stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me address another thing that I think a lot of people have questions about, and that is cost. Uh, not
Yes.
all,
Yes.
not all of the tier two. So if you're looking at U.S. junior programs, NCDC and NOL that are
Right.
tuition free, in junior A
Mm-hmm.
in Canada, which leagues are
Yep.
now pay to play and which ones are free to play?
Jeez. Uh, the only ones that I know that are free to play now, Maritimes is still free. They may ask you to pay for a billet. The
Yep.
family may have to pay for the billet per month, but everything else is free. Ontario, all 4 you pay to play, and it varies from team to team, league to league. Going westward again, it there used to be all free, um, but now they've even Saskatchewan and Alberta, Manitoba, they're all at least asking for the billet to be paid for.
Yep.
And then you get into the BC, which same thing. The only one that BCHL is everything's covered. You
Yeah.
don't pay a cent. Yeah.
And where does a
So
team
that's
get their funding?
they're all getting that.
Yeah, where does the teams get their funding? Because I think that that's a little bit like if you're looking at the NCDC in the U.S. side, where they may have 100 people come to a game, especially on the East Coast, a little bit different in the West. But
Right.
and even on the Knoll, there's not necessarily thousands of people. But if you go into
No.
these Ontario Junior A leagues, what's a typical attendance and the small towns in here, and how much of that their money do they get through, sponsorships and attendance for the teams?
Well, let's just take the Ontario Junior Hockey League for example. You have, on average, it's probably a couple hundred to 300 fans per game. That's overall average. You go up to a couple of the northern teams, Northern Ontario, like Collingwood or Halliburton, they're going to get 500 plus per game. So they're going to be higher. Go out eastern of the OJ to Wellington or Cobourg or Trenton. Again, they're going to be 400, 500, 600 people per game. You come into Toronto, you're lucky to just have the fans will be the parents and some girlfriends. It's pretty bad. So you're not making anything on an attendance that way. So you can figure it out where the money's higher, money to play at type of thing. So you get a Toronto team, they may charge a little bit more than say the Eastern or up North team
Yeah.
per player. Um, and that's the same with the CCHL in Eastern Ontario. Northern, they have a lot of costs to cover regarding travel, buses. Um, the Northern leagues, they do a lot of busing, so that's where a lot of their costs go to. Um, I guess the junior B, it's pretty small cost, but it's rising now. It used to be only $1,000. Now I know some teams have raised it up close to 4,000
Yeah.
for registration and cost to play. So,
But
which is, that's nothing compared to playing AAA hockey in U16, where there's tens of thousands of dollars going in because you're traveling tournaments and so forth. But it's still costly.
but
Yeah.
I think that the travel. So if you're looking at the OJ teams and the CCHL teams, they're not traveling that far. It's day trips and
No,
then they go home but it is still busing and as a team and meals but it's not like the Knoll.
some of them.
If you're in Oklahoma and then you got to go play Corpus Christi,
Yeah.
and they have sleepers on their buses.
Yeah. It's a fair haul.
Yeah. Uh,
That's right. Yeah. No, no, up here they don't do that. But again, the cost is to run the team. Again, they do a lot of sponsorship. They ownership themselves. Usually have to fork in a fair amount of money per year. I mean, they're not making money. If they break even, that's great. Most likely, it's a write-off type of thing.
yeah.
But to each his own.
Yeah.
Don't go in think you're going to make some money.
Yeah. Let's talk next about kind of because when you have player movement, you see a lot of and this be interesting from a standpoint of let's talk about the cards because a lot of people hear the word
Yep.
cards or the registration card or Hockey Canada registration. What's the difference between a
Yep.
contract? So you have a player, let's say one of your players, they go to quote
Yep.
unquote main camp and they're offered a contract, but there's 50 players that are offered a contract. Not all are going to be registered with Hockey Canada, right?
Well, yeah, I know lot of leagues, not so much here in Ontario, but I know the Westerns, they do what they call, and I know it happens down in the States in different leagues too, is that they get signed to a letter of intent um, on the off season or close to the season. That doesn't mean you've made the team, just means that you're on their list of, say, 50 guys. And that just protects the team and the player, or more so the team, from any other teams trying to take that player away for their own club. which is okay. But we always tell our players, this is not a contract. This is not, you haven't made the team yet. You're going to sign that. You still have to go make the team. So when you go make the team in Ontario, there, I think the card, as you say, a player card or registration, there's difference. There's team registration, which there's a cost, and then there's or league registration on top of that, and then you have Hockey Canada registration, which is what we call the player card, and everything's done electronically now. So you do it all online, and you register yourself through Hockey Canada, or the team does it for you. Um, there's no cost to that. It's the league itself. Say the OJ has their league fund or league fee, and then the team itself will have a team fee. So that's where your costs go up.
Yep.
Where it used to be just a team fee, which would cover your league fee, if there was one way back when there wasn't one. So the cards that they get or registration slots, whatever you want to call it, they get up to, I think it's up to 30 now. I could be mistaken, could be 35. I haven't really followed up on that. But it's in that ballpark where it used to be when I was a manager, it was only 25. So they've grown that a fair bit over the past 10, 15 years, I guess. Which is allows the teams to you can sign up to 25 players. You can't have any more than that. Okay, so when they have two cut down dates, December 1st, what it means is you have to have, you have to put the cards in of 2025. You do that again or trade deadline or whatever you want to call it. Then the other one's January 9th or 10th, whatever it is. I use 9th as an example. That's when they have to finally put in whatever card, their roster up to 25. And then if they have cards left over, they got to send those in too. But the reason why you don't want any left over, you want to have, four or five of those cards up to the 9th to be able to swing a trade or release a player and bring in a new player, that type of, so you have room for movement, as I called it.
Yeah.
Most of the teams, 95% of them manage that properly. There's always a couple that made a goof or something along the line and made a mistake, and they're allowed, they're human. That maybe didn't make the right move or didn't make the move, and then they're left with blank cards, which they have to put in. So that kind of explains the whole, that card situation. But that there is no cards anymore, player cards. It's all electronic registration. There's just so many slots, as I call it now, for players, and that's up. Team can sign 25 players.
So what
Yeah, and they
happened?
can dress 20.
Yeah, yeah. So you have, but you do see on the rosters pretty much everybody, at least in the beginning, especially in the September and October, they have a lot more players on the roster than 25.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. And that at the beginning of the season, a lot of those are they may not be registered. They have to put them on the roster, but it might not be a full registration. You also have the alternate players, the APs that can be listed as well. Those are coming from, if it's a junior A program or junior B, it doesn't matter. They could be coming from a U18 team.
yeah,
So if they need a player in a pinch for a game, they can draw from those teams, and they have to be on the roster as well. And they allowed. It used to be when I was GM, you worked with a affiliate. Like we used to work with a junior C team from junior B, and if you're a junior A, you worked with a junior B team, whatever, and you drew from those teams for any subs that you needed,
yeah,
players to sub in. Now it's a free for all. You're allowed up to 14 players, I think, but you can have a player. You could be in Trenton, Ontario, and have an AP player from London.
yeah.
Will
But
they ever get to play practice with the team? Not likely, but yeah,
But let's talk a
they could
little
use
bit
him
of
later on in the season.
where
Hmm.
you may get involved with some. Let's talk about some potential pitfalls that I think people need to be aware of. Even where when you're coming in,
Sure.
like you mentioned, that just because you got offered an LOI doesn't mean that you're on the team. But then you go to main camp and then
Correct.
you're cut. You didn't even get registered, right? So now you got cut. So now
Right.
you're going to have to try to
Yep.
find. Now you're
And I
going to
got
have
to
to
find
try
a
to find
team.
another team. And
Correct.
the timing of
Correct.
that, the
That's where I
timing,
come in.
yeah, and that's what I was getting to. Is the
Yep.
timing of that is if and you see it on posts all the time. I'm a 2006 birth year goalie. I'm a 2006 birth year defenseman. You
Yep.
know, and I'm looking for a junior A. They're all looking for a junior A team, but all the junior A teams are full
Sure.
and they got cut. So they're looking
That's correct.
for a place.
Yep.
How, how many of them have an advisor and why do they need an advisor or why or how do they deal with it without an advisor in Canada?
Um, not everybody needs an advisor, of course. Not and not in your situation or that situation is mentioned. It comes down. It's a business, uh, and it's connections. Um, I may have more connections than the other guy. Or I definitely may have more connections than a parent. So that's where your advisors come in. Um, but we can't guarantee you. We never guarantee anybody anything. Um, just because you just don't know.
Yep.
But as an advisor, I'm always working. I've got plan A, which maybe is that the player's gone out because he's got a letter of intent, but I've got plan B and C kind of hanging in place just in case that kid doesn't make that team. We got another place to go.
Yeah.
And if he's not good enough to make that team, or they're full, they're not quite sure, then we've got plan C going to another team. That's what an advisor does or should do. Have some plans and plan ahead. I'm always working a year ahead of my players, so I may have players playing junior B. They're young, or maybe say take example in '07 or '06 right now. They're playing their first or second year of junior B, and they want to go up to the next level, being junior A. I'm working for him and the family now with teams on the higher level saying, hey, you got to watch these prospects, get your bird dogs out there, your scouts, because they're ready to move up, and
Yep.
that's what a good advisor does. Yeah,
And the top player in
and
that
and
junior
and
B may be a stud.
correct. Yeah, yeah. So you've got to you know you can't leave things to the last moment. Sometimes that happens, unfortunately, because you maybe get surprised by something happens to the player, and you're going, oh crap, we thought this guy was going to be here for a bit, but he's not. Whatever happened. So again, that's where you get on the phone with some good connections that you have. Hey, we got this player is available now, any room type of
Yeah.
thing, and it's a lot easier nowadays because of Instat or Flow Hockey or anything like that. So people can watch video of the player. Where 5 years ago, even we had to scrounge up video somewhere and send it off to the team, and so they could watch them. They may not have ever seen the kid play, or gain good relations. Okay, they trust us.
Yeah. So
The GM knows us. They know me. Yeah,
let, let's talk about this scenario then. And so you take this player because I think that the
sure.
next question is rights or who owns the rights. So I've signed a letter of intent. I go to main camp, but I'm cut.
Yep.
And cut is a slang for
Right.
being released, right?
Yeah, we prefer the word released. It's a little
Yeah.
more nice.
Yeah. But okay, I'm being released
But
from
I know,
the team.
yeah. So
Do
you
they still own my rights if I signed a letter of intent with that team?
no. They once that they released. that goes back into the league, into their league, whatever, and saying, hey, that player comes off that list.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's some teams that will question that. Yes, we still own their rights, and but officially, you don't.
Unless they're protected,
But some of them
unless
try
they
to
are
do it.
registered.
Yeah,
So
correct.
let's
Yeah,
take that player
yeah,
then. Let's say we have a protected player, which we won't
yeah,
go into the protected is too much detail, but let's say you have a season goes in, they played their first game and they are registered with Hockey Canada Registry, HCR, and they
yep,
quote unquote burned a card on this player. So Warren is now
correct.
a registered player, but then they're not performing or they got too much, they're a healthy scratch forward that, gets some playing time, not producing, and they get some OHL cuts that are coming in and now all of a sudden, in your case, they're not developing because they're not getting any ice time, right?
Yeah, they're not playing.
So what
Sure,
happens in that
sure,
case? It could be that the player may say, "Hey, I'd rather go to a league perhaps a little bit lower, but I'm going to get a bigger role. I don't want to ride the pine." So what happens in those situations?
sure. Okay, well, just to use that scenario, you have a player that doesn't make major junior A, goes and starts off in tier two junior A in the OJ. And all those factors fall into place. Other guys falling down from the OHL, trickle down effect, and so forth. And now he's instead of being the top 12 forwards, he's now the 14th player forward, and he's sitting in the stands and he wants to move. Now, the logical move, or at least what I would be doing, is talking with the GM. Where do you see him? Is he actually going to? Is he part of the picture now or no? If he isn't, can we? They'll put him on the wire, the trade wire in that league, which goes out to all the teams saying this player is available. Contact us.
Yep.
If it gets overlooked by all the teams, rest of the teams, then he basically the GM and I agree upon I'm allowed maybe to call some of the teams I know, maybe try to really should take a look at them, or we say, well, what about junior B? Go down and play the next level down, which is technically junior B, and we contact the junior B level teams on behalf of our client and see where there's a fit. It's a trade still. Uh, the GMs would have to work out an agreement, be it a PDF, a player development fee, or a player itself moving up or going down. Usually it's not. It's usually a PDF, some form of fee, and it's a wide spectrum of that, dollar wise. And that's basically we try to help out the teams. Some teams don't want the advisor or agent to help. They're going to do it on their own. They're going to deal with the GM of that team. That's fine. That's their prerogative. But you got to be careful of tampering. You don't want to be calling teams unless that team that owns the rights for that player or you represent has given you permission to call some teams. And
Yeah.
I'm right up front with teams. I said, would you allow me to? And if he says no, okay, I'm not gonna. Sorry, I tell my client, tell my family, they're not allowing me to call any other teams. They're doing it on their own, which is fine. But to be honest with you, the majority will allow the agent or the advisor to contact some teams, as long as you're in contact with them and let them know. But again, all you're doing is letting that other team know that this player is available. Contact the GM if you're interested. And that's the conversation. So that's what we do.
And
That's what happens for the player.
and for the team, for the general manager, that can be beneficial because at the end of the day, if they're not playing them, at least they can get a player back or a development fee for the player, right?
Well, yeah, that's I always said when I was a GM, geez, I want something back to the player, even if it's a bag of pucks.
Yeah.
That's just tongue in cheek, but I'm not going to just straight out release a player and get nothing back. I've already invested whatever dollar for the organization into this player. I may not get that recoup all that back, but I'm going to recoup something back. So some teams GMs are a little go overboard and they try to recoup what they invested and maybe more so. But they're usually told, settle down. This is what the going rate is, type of deal.
Yeah. So let me ask this question. What happens then to the player then that have signed for a pay to play? They paid so a standard contract in the OJHL. I think it's a team fee player. There's a team fee, league
Yep,
fee, and equipment fee, right?
correct.
So they paid this.
Yep.
Let's call it five grand. They paid this into the team,
Okay.
and then now they get traded. And who pays the player development
Yes.
fee? Who pays that team in the OJ that just traded away their player?
Everything gets transferred with the player from one team to another. So whatever has been paid or not paid, whatever, that is all done by the league, figured out, and then yeah, usually if everything's been paid by a parent, nothing's going to get owed per se. Um, so that's all done by the league.
Yeah.
It's just transfer. Everything gets transferred.
But now I want to throw a monkey wrench in here because if we that's some of the protections for those that are part of Hockey Canada, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And if you are now, let's say one of these leagues breaks out and they say, we want to now be independent,
Yes,
they could do whatever they want to.
they could, and I presume some of them have. But usually those those leagues do have a governing body with similar rules and regulations that where they've come from, i.e., Hockey Canada, are similar.
Yeah.
They just maybe word it differently. I haven't heard. I mean, there's a in Ontario. There's the Greater. No, not Greater. Uh, yeah, I guess it is called that, isn't it? Yeah, Greater Metro Hockey League. I think it's
The
called
GMHL.
GMHL. Yeah, which is a junior A. They classify themselves as junior
Yeah.
A. They have their own, and they've been in business for a while now, if I'm not mistaken. They have their governing bodies, the ownerships, and they have their set of rules, which some are very similar to where they came from, i.e., Hockey Canada, and obviously they brought in some of their own rules,
Yeah.
which are good. So I never heard any, regarding player being traded. It's just similar to what has already been in existence in other leagues.
Yeah. But I think that if we're talking about GMHL, we've had Johan, of course, another fellow Swede has been on who's so affiliated with the GMHL team in Bradford. Um, the reason why
Yes,
that
yes,
broke off was mainly because of the restriction on international players.
yes,
And
yes.
and they
Yeah, and
certainly
again,
have
that's
capitalized on that.
certainly have over the years. Yes, they have. And I mean that's basically that's one of the reasons why that league started.
Yeah.
Was the international players coming over. If you want to call it financed it at the beginning, that go ahead. I didn't say it, but go ahead.
Yep.
Um, that's fine, but it's come a long way, and it's a half decent league. I mean, I actually on the other side of my business as a peak performance mindset coach, I've worked with several of the teams on that side of things
Yep.
and help them. So they're good organization. I mean, it's guys that just obviously wanted to be different and not be in the set mold that Hockey Canada has produced.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Everybody's allowed to do that.
Yeah. But I do think that there's, I think that there was the other thing to mention is that the restrictions that there was some hurt feelings from Hockey Canada when BCHL broke free, and then
Oh
this,
yeah,
so because of if you play in the BCHL now I think there's a deadline between September 30th. So if you play past September 30th, you can no longer get transferred. But explain to
correct.
NCDC in the US, which is independent, can also
Yep,
create a forfeiture where you can no longer transfer back to Hockey Canada. Or if you go from NCDC, you can't go to Hockey Canada if it's after September 30th, right?
that's correct. Yeah, yeah, and it's the same with anybody that's playing in the USHL or not USHL, the USPHL,
Yes.
Premier League, Elite League, and so forth. It's the same thing. And once they start playing down there, and it's gone past September 30th, October 1st, whatever, you've got to stay there and play, or you're not going to play, or you come
Yeah.
back home and play in another non-sanctioned league, whatever. So yeah, it's which is fine. It used to be, you're banned. Right at the beginning, it was banned for life to play a game in Hockey Canada. That was a little extreme, especially for kids. Game, hey, they forget about the kids, but they calm down, and now you play you out a year. Like had two players that played self in the non-sanctioned and are back playing junior hockey up here. All they had to do was submit a form or whatever into Hockey Canada. The season's done, so the new season begins. I'm going to be playing here and so forth, and then they're reinstated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it like I've said, it's right after the beginning. We it's supposed to be for the kids. It doesn't matter if they're 5 years old or 21 years old. They're still kids, and we have in our vast supposedly knowledge of the game and rules and regulations from Hockey Canada down. I'm sorry, they have forgotten about the kids, and that's just my opinion. But there's a lot of cases where uh, things should never have happened, and they have happened, or transfers, or registration, all that. It's so much red tape. It's unbelievable. Um, and is the Hockey Canada to blame itself? No, other associations that feed off Hockey Canada can be put into the same bracket, same box, whatever you want to call it. Um, if a kid wants to play hockey, let him play hockey.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I do
My
I do
opinion.
think
My
it's
opinion.
I do think it's a little bit simpler perhaps at the youth or minor level, a little bit more straightforward. But when you get into these juniors and
Yep.
there are a lot of wolves out there in sheep's clothing. There's a lot of promises that are made.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
There's a lot of and some of them have to do this because they overcommit because they lose players, and if you didn't overcommit, then I don't have enough, and then they
Yep.
behind the eight ball. And I just think that the goal of this podcast is to
Oh yeah.
educate and inform. So it's really what we're trying to do is
Yep.
talk about the nuances and the differences, and and certainly having people around you. I was speaking to a European player that unfortunately got really, really bad advice. Uh, was thought they were on the team, but you know it was pretty easy, straightforward. They're European. They couldn't play in that league. I'm not sure which league it was. It was a junior A league, and you know
Oh
then
yeah.
then they're sitting there at the time when everybody's being cut and the market, so to speak, is flooded. And it was one
Yep.
of those, like, if you're European, and let's talk about that, because if you're a European, you're not, unless there's some very,
Yep.
unless you played 3 years or 2 years or something in U16. But if you're a European, the only places that you can currently play juniors in, aside from the major juniors, is going to be the BCHL, the GMHL, and what's the other
Yeah,
one in the under the BCHL is a new one, right?
yeah. I'm trying to remember what it
The
is
V,
now, what they're
what I
called.
don't know if it was called the
But yeah,
Victoria, the VIJHL, or the
yeah, you VIJHL. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the VIJHL. Yeah, there's only those three leagues. There was another one. I don't know if they're still existing or not. I think they may have become part of the GMHL out west. Some of the teams out west, but yeah, that's really all. And that's probably one of the reasons why the GMHL, as I say, came into existence, is to bring the international players over that wanted to play junior A hockey,
yeah,
and they couldn't play under Hockey Canada rules, uh, which is understandable to a certain extent too. Um, but so people formed these leagues, and which is fine too. Again, um, I have no qualms about it. I just again there is some restrictions that you gotta have. Sure, there's got to be rules, and I get that. But again, some of them are. I think I was talking more of regarding Hockey Canada and the transfer registration. They forget about the players. It's more of the younger ones,
yeah,
as I mentioned, minor hockey, as you mentioned, that they forget about the minor hockey and the young youth hockey, I guess. Junior hockey is a little different. You're absolutely right. And that's, as I say, I think you're going to see more um, junior leagues break away.
yeah,
I thought they might have seen one or two this past for this season, but it was held off, I think.
yeah,
I can't say who, but they that could change. Yeah,
yeah.
that
And
could
I
change.
and you hear the rumblings of it in the summer, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, there's no way it's going to because it's too late now.
Yeah,
If it's going to happen, it's probably in the works now. But
correct.
and that's kind of what happened with the AJHL when they lost the four teams to the BCHL. It happened
Yeah,
during the year because they knew they needed to get out in front of it. Now it
yeah,
was kind of a big hoopla with that, but still,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean, timing wise, wasn't the best for any of them, both
yeah,
sides,
yeah,
and it's just unfortunate. That's just the way it is.
yeah,
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 yeah. But there will be more. I feel in the next couple years and in a couple seasons anyway. And um, again, Hockey Canada has to restructure. I know they're trying. Um, there's a lot of new people in Hockey Canada now. Old ones have gone. I think again just observation here is there's a lot there that are learning there as they go along as well in Hockey Canada,
yeah,
and uh, which can be scary too. Um, I'm not sure if everybody in Hockey Canada understands. At least again, my point of view is they work for us, the parent, the player. We don't work for them,
yeah,
and so if there's something that needs to be done or requested by a parent or by minor hockey or whatever it is, that should be done pretty quickly. And I don't feel that's happens. It gets pushed to the side or pushed to somebody else, or as I say, a committee needs to be formed, blah blah blah, and it get and weeks go by before something happens, and
yeah,
that's the sad part.
yeah,
Again, affecting the player. It's
yeah.
so
One,
that's my little rant for and
one
not much of one, but that's my little rant.
Yeah. One thing that I want to encourage anybody that watches on YouTube or listens on the podcast is if you go to Elite Prospects and then click on the leagues and then click on North America, it's a really good we did this before but and broke it down, but you look at Canada West, Canada Ontario, Canada East is how they break it down. And it
Yep.
is it is a little bit of a minefield when it comes to the amount of different junior leagues that are out there, and it's a pretty good visual of. I've got it up here on my second screen, but and you can click
Yeah.
through these. One thing I want to do, say in summary and in closing, and that is really the level of hockey at the junior A and junior B. It's incredibly good. It's fast, it's physical.
Yep.
It is not junk
Oh
hockey.
yeah.
It's and no
No,
wonder
that's good
why a
hockey.
small town embraces this team and and it's exciting and it is a part of the culture in Canada and it remains to this day. And
Oh, for sure.
I think the reason why I want to talk about it is because I think that it gets a little bit forgotten.
Yeah.
If you're in the US, it gets a little bit forgotten. And I was recently up at a showcase, and the amount of coaches and the amount of scouts in the stands at a junior A level was incredible. Now, most of them were D3, but there was a lot of D1 schools that were there too in a September showcase.
Were,
It was neat to see.
was this the Ontario Junior Hockey League
This was actually in the
showcase?
CCHL in Cornwall is where I
Oh,
went.
the CCHL one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cornwall. Yeah.
and
Yeah, there would
Frank,
be. Then the OJ just had theirs.
yeah, frankly, I thought there was a little bit of a myth. I was a little bit of a skeptic and a little bit of a, oh yeah. There's lots of scouts are going to be there. Well, there was a lot of scouts in the stands. Every school pretty much was there, and
Yeah.
and
Yep.
good hockey. It's exciting hockey. So,
And
so
good and very good. Yeah, very good hockey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
What's the best way for people that are, put a plug in for just like I found you? Um, how do people, you're involved both on the advisor side, and I think hopefully this gives people a little bit of an insight
Yep.
of who you are and what your experience is, but then also on the performance uh,
Mhm.
mindset side. How do they reach you? How do they contact you? What's the best way to reach you?
Okay. On the agency side, our RRI Global Hockey Agency website. They can click on my picture or they can contact the office and ask for me. My email's Warren at rrihockey.agency.com. And my Facebook page is Coach Nye 33. And you can get me on my private one and then my peak performance mindset coaching. I have my own business, which is called Mind Over Sport. And that is www.mindoversport.ca. You can reach me through there or again, Facebook, Instagram, Coach 33, Coach 933, sorry.
Yeah,
Or LinkedIn
yeah, and
under,
I
and
would just say
reached anywhere.
if you Google Warren Nye hockey, lots and all of those comes up, and
Yeah,
I so
yeah,
appreciate you coming
it'll pop.
on. I yeah,
No problem, Mike.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on and talk about this minefield of Canadian juniors, and we share a passion there.
Oh, for sure. That's a good way of describing minefield. Yeah, can blow up anytime, honestly. So we'll see what happens in the next year or two.
Yeah. Well, we'll cut it there, Warren. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and all the best there. Okay.
Thanks.